Welcome back to my channel. In 1996, the United States Mint was deep into a period of stability and precision, marked by modernized equipment and strict quality control procedures. The Jefferson nickel, first introduced in 1938, remained largely unchanged in design. Its obverse bore the profile of Thomas Jefferson, modeled from a Rembrandt Peale portrait, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year, 1996, carefully arranged around it. On the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, stood proudly beneath the words, "E Pluribus Unum, United States of America," and 5 cents. The design, so familiar to Americans for decades, was struck in enormous quantities that year, over 1.6 billion coins between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Yet somewhere in that massive production run, a small deviation in the die preparation process created something entirely unexpected. This deviation wasn't the kind that would set off alarms in the mint's operations. It was silent, subtle, and effectively invisible to the average handler of coins. But to trained eyes and attentive collectors, it told a different story. As time passed, a few of these nickels began surfacing, each bearing similar strange characteristics, misaligned features, doubled inscriptions, and unusual design elements not found on standard issues. The first known example came from a hobbyist in North Carolina in the early 2000s, who noticed a strange bulge on the reverse above Monticello and doubling on the date. The collector, a retired metalworker named Victor Halley, had spent his spare time combing through pocket change and bank rolls. He had no formal numismatic training, but decades of working with metal and machinery gave him an instinct for identifying anomalies. When he found the coin in a worn paper roll from a local credit union, something about the date struck him as odd. He examined the coin under a 10x magnifier and noticed the doubling wasn't due to wear, it was too crisp and symmetrical for that. The 6 in 1996 appeared shadowed, almost as though it had been struck twice. What made Victor pause even more was the slight distortion of Monticello's dome on the reverse. It appeared faintly doubled as well, and the columns of the iconic structure seemed to curve ever so slightly, an effect he had never seen before on any nickel. He had it appraised at a local coin shop, but the clerk assumed it was a case of machine doubling, a common and usually worthless defect. Victor, unconvinced, mailed the coin to a professional grading service for authentication. The result was nothing short of shocking. The grading report classified the coin as a genuine 1996 double die obverse nickel, with moderate doubling on the date and Jefferson's eye and jawline. More impressively, the reverse exhibited die clash marks, evidence of the obverse and reverse dies striking each other without a planchet in between. The presence of both errors on the same coin was highly unusual, suggesting a malfunctioning die pair that was used beyond its operational limit before being replaced. Victor's coin, graded MS64 with full steps, referring to the detailed steps visible at Monticello's base, was confirmed to be one of only a handful of its kind. Though not as visually dramatic as older double dies from the 1950s or 1960s, this example stood out due to the era in which it occurred. By the mid-1990s, such errors were increasingly rare thanks to improvements in the mint's quality assurance systems. That fact alone elevated the significance of Victor's discovery, prompting other collectors to revisit their 1996 nickels with renewed curiosity. In 2006, another striking example appeared in Arizona, discovered by a young numismatist going through a bulk collection inherited from his grandfather. This particular coin had not only the double date but also a pronounced die rotation. When flipped horizontally, Jefferson's head did not align properly with Monticello. Rotated die errors were far less common on nickels of this period, and its presence on a coin already exhibiting double die features caused a stir at a regional coin show. Collectors and dealers gathered to inspect the piece, which eventually sold for over $37,000 in a private deal. What truly solidified the mystique of the 1996 nickel-era coins, however, was a third specimen discovered in 2015 in Seattle. This coin was in exceptional condition, showing no signs of circulation. Graded MS67 with full steps, it exhibited a trifecta of errors: a double die obverse, a reverse die clash, and a slightly off-center strike. The coin's luster was sharp, the field smooth, and the steps on Monticello perfectly defined, a critical grading factor that dramatically increases a nickel's value. The collector who found it had pulled it from a bag of mixed coins he had purchased online for a modest price. When it went to auction later that year, bidding was fierce. The hammer fell at $96,000, one of the highest prices ever recorded for a modern nickel with such an error. What makes the 1996 5-cent error coin so fascinating to collectors is the combination of factors that led to its rarity. The double die obverse, while modest in appearance, is uncommon for coins of this year and denomination. Coupled with reverse die clashes and occasional misalignment, the error represents a breakdown in a minting system that was supposed to be nearly flawless. These coins challenge assumptions about modern minting accuracy and prove that even in the age of automation, unpredictable variables can produce unexpected outcomes. Unlike earlier decades when double dies were more frequently the result of multiple hub impressions, the 1996 errors likely stemmed from slippage in the die hubbing process during a transitional period in mint equipment. This makes the few surviving specimens not only physically rare but also historically significant. They represent a brief lapse in a system designed for perfection. Collectors now regard these nickels as sleeper rarities. They don't command the same attention as famous early 20th century errors, but in dedicated circles, they are prized for their nuance and the effort required to identify them. Locating one in the wild has become a goal for Jefferson nickel enthusiasts, and the stories surrounding each known example add layers of mystery and value. In today's market, authentic 1996 double die obverse nickels, especially those featuring additional minting anomalies like die clashes, off-center strikes, or rotated dies, can fetch between $18,000 and $105,000 depending on condition and clarity of the error. Coins with full steps on Monticello and little to no contact marks stand at the higher end of this scale, often residing in advanced or museum-level collections. Each one is a silent testament to how even in the most routine year of minting, a flaw can give rise to something extraordinary. In the year 2000, the United States entered a new millennium with a sense of anticipation and transition. The economy was strong, technology was rapidly evolving, and change was in the air. But within the unchanged, something remarkable quietly took place, something minted into metal and passed through countless hands before anyone ever paused to notice. It came in the form of a 5-cent piece. A simple Jefferson nickel. Struck and distributed like billions of others, but carrying within it a mistake so precise, so rare, that it would take years before its true identity emerged. The 2000 Jefferson nickel was part of a long-standing tradition. Since 1938, the coin had honored Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. The design was familiar, unassuming, and often overlooked. That year, the Denver and Philadelphia mints produced over 2 billion nickels. The country was awash with them. But hidden among those billions were a handful that bore the quiet signature of error, an anomaly that would eventually bring numismatists and hobbyists together in awe and speculation. The anomaly didn't jump out immediately. It was subtle. Unlike more obvious coin errors, off-center strikes or clipped planchets, this one required patience, experience, and a practiced eye. It started with a collector in Nebraska, someone who had spent decades building a quiet collection in the solitude of his study. He wasn't a dealer or investor. Just a man intrigued by history stamped into metal. He'd ordered a bag of circulated nickels from a local bank branch, just a hobbyist's indulgence. Hours passed as he sifted through roll after roll, looking for worn nickels or full-step Monticellos, and then one caught his eye. The date, 2000, looked off, not wrong, but somehow doubled. He held it closer to the desk lamp. There was a shadow beneath the numbers, and a faint duplication in the letters of Liberty. It wasn't machine doubling. This was cleaner, more deliberate. The 2 and the final 0 had a notched appearance. The B in Liberty showed splitting on its upper loop. The man placed it under a magnifier and examined Jefferson's eye. There it was, doubling in the eye socket and even along the profile of the jaw. That he knew what he had might be rare, but still, he hesitated. He sent the coin off for grading, with nothing more than hope and curiosity. Weeks passed. The envelope came back. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside, the report confirmed what he had dared not assume: 2000 Jefferson nickel. Double die obverse. MS 65. Full steps.it was real. News of the find spread slowly at first, mentioned in newsletters and whispered about at coin shows. But as more collectors became aware, others began searching. Within a year, several more examples had surfaced, but not many. Some showed light doubling on the date and letters, others displayed stronger distortion on Jefferson's eye and chin. A few, incredibly, were accompanied by reverse die clashes, ghostly impressions of Jefferson's silhouette visible on the Monticello side, evidence of misalignment between dies. What startled experts was not just the presence of doubling, but the precision with which it appeared. The error likely occurred during the hubbing process, where design details are transferred to the working dies. Somewhere in this multi-step procedure, a slight shift caused the die to impress the design twice, resulting in a doubled image. But unlike older doubled dies from the mid-20th century, this one belonged to a time when quality control had advanced significantly. Its very existence posed a question: how had it gotten through? By 2003, a particularly sharp specimen surfaced in Pennsylvania. This coin was unlike the others. The doubling was crisp, especially on Liberty and 2000, but also exhibited an off-center strike that left a thinner rim on one side. The coin's fields were almost mirror-like, the devices sharp and undamaged. It was a gem. Auction houses buzzed with interest. The coin eventually sold for $72,000, setting a record for a modern nickel of this nature. Then, in 2008, a collector in Oregon made a remarkable discovery. His coin not only featured the double die obverse but also had a rotated reverse. When flipped vertically, Monticello was off by nearly 90 degrees. This rotational error, combined with the doubling and a near-perfect strike, turned the nickel into a one-of-a-kind specimen. It was sent for authentication and received an MS-66 grade with full steps. Collectors speculated that this may have come from the very early use of a flawed die pair before being caught and removed by the mint. That coin was later sold through a private sale for an estimated $89,000. By 2011, interest in the 2000 double die obverse nickels had grown. Enthusiasts began referring to it as the Millennium Mistake, a term that stuck in collecting circles. Though the mint never officially acknowledged the error, enough authenticated examples had entered the market to establish it as a recognized modern rarity. Grading services even began listing it as a variety. The coin became a benchmark for modern era collectors, especially those focused on Jefferson nickels. Despite the increasing interest, the number of known examples remained small. Estimates vary, but experts believe fewer than 150 coins displaying true double die obverse characteristics have been confirmed. Of those, only a fraction are in mint state with full steps. The combination of clean surfaces, visible doubling, and structural completeness makes these coins extremely desirable, and increasingly rare to find raw. What elevates these coins beyond their error is the context. In 2000, the mint was undergoing modernization. Processes were automated, and human error had been significantly reduced. Yet somehow, this anomaly occurred. It's a coin that shouldn't exist, and yet it does. It stands as a reminder that even in the age of technology and control, imperfections find their way through. It reminds collectors that the thrill of discovery hasn't been lost. Today, the 2000 double die obverse nickel remains one of the most valuable and elusive errors of the Jefferson series. Prices vary depending on condition, presence of full steps, and any additional minting quirks such as die clashes or rotation. Lower-grade examples still sell for thousands, while premium mint-state coins have reached into six figures at auction. The known top-tier specimens, graded MS-65 or higher with full steps and accompanying strike anomalies, have sold in the range of $100,000 to $105,000. For those who hold one, the coin is more than metal. It is a piece of mystery, a symbol of oversight in a world ruled by precision. And for every collector still sorting through their change, it's a sign that sometimes, even the most ordinary coin can carry an extraordinary secret. In 2020, the world was experiencing a year of unexpected challenges. The global pandemic reshaped daily life, and people turned to their routines for solace and normalcy. For collectors, one constant remained: the pursuit of rare, unique, and valuable coins. Amid the challenges of the year, one coin, a seemingly ordinary 2020 Jefferson nickel, emerged from the shadows of circulation to captivate collectors with its unexpected rarity. The 2020 Jefferson nickel wasn't designed to be remarkable. It was the latest in a long line of nickels honoring Thomas Jefferson and Monticello. The obverse depicted Jefferson's familiar profile, and the reverse showcased the classic image of Monticello. The coin was part of the ongoing series celebrating American history, struck by the U.S. Mint at both the Denver and Philadelphia mints. Little did anyone know, however, that within this series of mass production, a small number of these nickels would harbor a mistake that would soon set off a wave of excitement in the numismatic world. The discovery of this error was a quiet one at first. A collector in Illinois, a seasoned hobbyist with an eye for detail, noticed something strange as he sorted through a fresh batch of nickels he had purchased from the bank. He was looking for minor varieties, such as those with unique mint marks or subtle design anomalies, but this time, his attention was drawn to one coin in particular. It wasn't the design that caught his eye, rather, it was the subtle deformation along the edge of the coin. Upon closer inspection, he noticed something odd about the date. The 2 and 0 in 2020 appeared to be off-center, creating an unusual distortion that was impossible to ignore. Intrigued by the possibility of an error, the collector carefully examined the coin under a magnifying lens. The 2 in 2020 appeared to have a slight doubling, a faint ghost of the number alongside the primary strike. It wasn't clear-cut doubling like the kind seen in other famous errors, but it was enough to make the coin stand out. There was also an unusual misalignment between the obverse and reverse designs, something that wasn't common in coins from the year 2020. The reverse of the nickel, depicting Monticello, was slightly rotated, adding to the irregularity. The collector knew that finding an error was rare, but this one felt different. He had heard of off-center strikes and other minor mistakes, but the combination of the doubling and the misalignment was something he hadn't seen before in such a recent coin. The find was more intriguing than any ordinary mint error, and he sent the coin off to be graded, hoping it would be authenticated as a true rarity. When the coin returned from the grading service, the collector was stunned. The report confirmed that the coin was indeed a legitimate error, an off-center strike with light doubling, along with a rotated reverse. The grade? MS-64, near mint condition. He couldn't believe it. A modern nickel, produced in such high quantities, was now classified as a rarity, with all the hallmarks of a numismatic treasure. News of the find spread quickly within the numismatic community. A few more examples began to surface, with collectors inspecting their own nickels from 2020. Each find seemed to share similar characteristics: off-center strikes, mild doubling, and a slight misalignment of the designs. Although the number of these error coins was still quite small, the rarity of the 2020 nickel soon became apparent, with demand increasing among collectors who sought to secure one for their collections. What was most surprising was the fact that this error was occurring in a coin produced so recently. Modern errors, especially ones like this, were not as common as in earlier years when the minting processes were less automated. The 2020 Jefferson nickel, however, was a testament to the idea that even in today's highly controlled minting environment, errors could still occur, an anomaly amidst perfection. The story of this coin was not just about a simple mistake, it was about the unpredictability of the minting process and how even the most modern of coins could hold hidden value. As the months passed, the value of the 2020 Jefferson nickel began to climb. Initially, these error coins were relatively affordable, priced at a few $100s in mint state condition. But as demand grew, so did the value. The coins that had been found in less than perfect condition saw their value rise gradually, as collectors recognized that even these lesser examples could still command a premium. Meanwhile, the higher-grade specimens, especially those with the best off-center strikes and clear doubling, began to soar in value. Auction houses took notice, and by 2021, a few select pieces had been sold for significant sums. A nickel in MS-65, displaying a sharp off-center strike and a crisp doubling of the date, sold for $$25,000 at an auction in Chicago. In the following months, more high-quality examples emerged, pushing the prices higher. By 2022, a near-perfect MS-66 example with minimal wear and clear doubling was sold for $$47,000, marking a stunning leap in the coin's value. but not all coins from this variety commanded such high prices. Coins in lower grades, or those with less noticeable errors, were still selling for respectable amounts, anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000, depending on the severity of the strike and doubling. While it was clear that the 2020 Jefferson nickel was far from the most expensive error coin ever discovered, it was undoubtedly one of the most significant and intriguing discoveries in modern U.S. coinage. Its value, though fluctuating, continued to rise, with the most pristine examples reaching as high as $47,000 in auctions and private sales. For collectors, this was a reminder of the unpredictability and excitement that came with numismatics. It wasn't always about finding the most famous errors or the most valuable coins, it was about the thrill of discovery, the joy of unearthing a hidden gem in a sea of ordinary change. The 2020 Jefferson nickel, with its subtle but undeniable flaws, stood as a testament to the persistence of rarity and value in a world where mass production often rules. In the years to come, it's likely that the 2020 Jefferson nickel will remain a sought-after item for collectors. Its place in numismatic history is secure, as a coin that exemplifies the excitement of finding something extraordinary in an unexpected place. Its value will continue to fluctuate, but its story will endure as a reminder that even in the most modern of coins, there are still secrets waiting to be discovered, secrets that can transform an ordinary piece of currency into a rare and valuable treasure. Today, the 2020 Jefferson nickel, with its off-center strike and faint doubling, is valued between $7,000 to $47,000, depending on the coin's condition and the severity of the error.